Are you worried about today's dire financial situation?
Put simply, I would argue the Biden economic plan is working.
The storms on Wall Street continue today after regulators seized the assets of Silicon Valley Bank, marking the largest bank failure since the 2008 financial crisis.
Do you worry you'll have enough to pay your mortgage, pay your children's college tuition, enough to retire?
I believe our banking system remains strong.
Regional banks in focus once again today as the market digests the fallout of the First Republic failure.
You have questions, we have answers. It's the Gold Standard with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Thanks for joining us on the Gold Standard Radio Show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn back together again. And this week we are going to talk about gold. That's not a shock, but why gold is going up. Ken Russo, it was so nice to spend the last few days with you. We were taking part in a wealth summit for AM 870 The Answer, and it was fun to hang out with you this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. It was good to talk to the people and show my true colors, red, white, and blue, and got a lot of comments about that. But yeah, it was fun. And yeah, gold is at an all-time high, Jen. And, obviously price is important. It's not the main reason why people should own gold, but of course they want to make money on their investment and they want to make money on gold. So we're going to talk this week a little bit about why gold is doing so well and probably why over the next 5 or 10 years it's going to probably be a lot higher than it is today.
And I might impress you with my skills because, Ken, you have taught me that the price of gold, it reflects how the value of the dollar, our purchasing power, is going down. And so I can't wait to jump into this with you. But before we do, we must talk about how we got here. And of course, we love to bring in really from another realm. We bring in former President Nixon to talk about how he really decided to take our currency that was backed by gold at the time and say, you know what, enough of this fiat currency for everybody. Here we go. We've got money that's backed by nothing. Doesn't that sound like a great idea? President Nixon, you came up with a real whopper there.
Get the printing presses going. There'll be no stopping 24/7. Print, print, print. But I mean, the point is we have a fiat money and we have a money that the American public isn't trusting. Obviously backed by nothing. So what provides the value? What makes our money a store of value? Well, it's not. When you can print fiat money into infinity, and when you have a government, and I don't know, Jen, if you've noticed this, but our government has a little bit of a debt and a little bit of a spending problem. And now I would even say it's a spending addiction.
Yeah.
We're over $34 trillion. And remember, 20 years ago or so, we were about $5 trillion. So let that sink in for a minute. $5 trillion to $34 trillion. We now have over $1 trillion a year in interest on our debt, which is more than what we pay for defense. And we all know that gold is also the ultimate, global, asset when it comes to global tensions and when it comes to war. And we're seeing that more evident today than ever with the military-industrial complex. But the debt situation is going to end very badly. We saw another bank today, New York Community Bank, which had to raise more money just to stay afloat. This is not anything new. We went over at the Wealth Summit on how March 11th, the bank term funding program is ending. This has kind of been a lifeline for a lot of these banks, regional banks that are drowning in unrealized losses over the last year to keep them afloat. So the whole system, I don't know how to say this any more clearer than this. It's fake.
Yeah.
And it's a fake system, Jen, that's based on fake money, and it's based on debt that's just created out of thin air. So when we come into a situation where we are going to have a recession ultimately, due to these higher interest rates. And when we talk about the tax receipts that are received each year versus the amount of money that we're spending, we're in a very, very dangerous historical situation right now where inevitably this bubble's going to pop. And I would say to you, Jen, many people love Jen Horn.
Thanks.
And I can see why. When someone talks to you about what's going on with the markets, and when someone says to you, what has you concerned and why would you own gold? I mean, as a person, as a businesswoman, as somebody who a lot of people who could relate to, the middle class, what would you tell them? I mean, everything that you've learned, I mean, what would you tell them? Why are you concerned right now?
It's an easy one. First of all, I have found great distrust in the government, and I believe that Republicans and Democrats spend their way out of problems. I believe that they are creating so much inflation. I know that people are feeling it and that their dollar is just not worth the same. So I would say to protect the wealth that I've tried to create for myself and for my family, maybe leave some as a legacy, I would put a portion of my dollar currency into gold, because gold, you've taught me this, Ken, has held its value and actually grown in value over time. Historically, it has an entire history behind it. It's something tangible. And because there is that distrust that I have now of the government, I hate to say it because I love this country, but gold makes me feel like I have freedom that I've set aside for myself, so that if something gets really bad, I have currency that I can access, but I know that a piece of my wealth at least is preserved in gold, so that if that bubble or when that bubble bursts, I'm going to be protecting myself.
That's right, Jen.
How's that for an answer? Is that pretty good?
I would give you an A+ with 5 gold stars on the refrigerator.
Thank you.
But I'm just saying, I mean, I think more and more people are starting to feel exactly that way. Obviously, it's a big charade. It's kind of like the man behind the curtain, right? And pulling these levers. And I'm not quite sure how many people in the last 20 or 30 years really realize what's going on and how much money's being printed. And I'm not sure they realize how risky assets are, paper assets. I'm not sure if they understand the safety of the banking system. You know, I was reading an article today where people were up in arms that a hash brown in McDonald's now costs over $3 for just a hash brown.
Well, even Biden. Oh,
like
go ahead. Yeah, even in Biden's prep for his State of the Union speech this week, you heard him practicing these lines on the American people in the run-up to that speech, talking about Cookie Monster and shrinkflation. I mean, they're trying to make it ridiculous that it's somehow on these companies giving you less cookies when really the value is there. That is all inflation, Ken. That's everything that people feel, no matter what the White House tells you, no matter what the government tells you. And they tell you that there's nothing going on, nothing to see here. Oh, we've got things in line, everything's safe. But we don't feel that. And I think there are a lot of people who are waking up going, okay, do I trust them or do I trust my own gut and my own grocery bill?
Yeah, that's a good point, Jen. And nobody believes it anymore. You know, nobody believes the rhetoric. And it's not going to end well. I mean, we've talked about it many times, and our money's losing a lot of purchasing power everywhere. The debt is growing exponentially every day, every week, every year. You know, it's growing exponentially. And like you said, to win votes, our great politicians continue to spend money that we don't have. And our central bank, which is the Fed, which isn't, government at all. It's as federal as Federal Express. It's a private corporation, that has shareholders. I mean, they're loaning us fake money. They're charging us interest on it. They're losing billions of dollars a year as well. It's just a really bad, place that we're in right now. But this has been decades in the making. I think a lot more people are starting to realize that. And I hope people are listening to the message. And the message is that you should never have all of your assets in a dying, decaying system supported by a dying, decaying dollar that is now called a Federal Reserve note that they're printing into infinity, and it's losing tremendous value. That's why a dollar, from 23 years ago is now worth 55 cents, and they can talk about shrinkflation, stagflation, inflation, what about moronflation? Let's talk about that.
I think Mitch McConnell's the head of that, right?
Yeah, stupidityflation, and these imbeciles that are right. Tuesday. I mean, which fool is going to be elected that I think they just passed another $460 billion today.
Yeah.
To keep the government, going. And just for full disclosure, me and Jen aren't together today. We're not in studio. We had to do it remotely. So it's a little awkward, but next week, hopefully we'll be back in studio. But this is just temporary. It's just another Band-Aid. So they can keep kicking the can down the road, and everybody's focused on this or everybody's focused on this. I know we talked at the Wealth Summit about it's kind of like going up to the window at the horse track, and you're putting your money and your ticket underneath the glass. Place your bets. That's what the markets feel like now. I mean, they come out with these earnings announcements or inflation numbers before or after the markets, and all the computers are programmed. Everybody starts pushing buttons. Everybody's on an app on their telephone, thinks that they're a trader now. So it's okay. I mean, we're in another bubble, but the message is, if you were fortunate enough to make some money in this bubble and you are lucky, great trader, maybe you inherited it, it doesn't matter. The point is, at least have enough common sense to understand where we're headed and what's going to happen to our money. Diversify what you can. Distance yourself a little bit from the banks and from what the markets are doing and what they're going to do. At least this way, no matter what happens, Jen, no matter how many concerns you have about your money, you at least know that you have your gold. You at least know that you have your silver. It's not connected to its sick, dying banking system. And no matter what, based on its long track record, it will always be worth something. And based on today, gold looks like it's going a lot higher. It's at a record price. And in my opinion, it's headed for a much higher value because our dollar is headed for a much lower value.
855-322-GOLD. That's the number to call from Midas Gold Group. If you are ready to dive in to wealth preservation, this is key. 855-322-4563, 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-GOLD. That is from Midas Gold Group. They are veteran-owned, America First patriots, not a call center. So you actually get to talk to someone. You can do it face-to-face. In Phoenix, Arizona, you can do it face-to-face. In Thousand Oaks, California, or always at 855-322-4653. You can text the word gold to 232425, and someone from Midas will get back to you. Or always MidasGoldGroup.com. As we continue, let's talk more about wealth preservation versus wealth creation. We'll dive into that as the Gold Standard Radio Show continues with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Dr. Gorka here. You're listening to The Gold Standard with your hosts, Ken Russo from veteran-owned Midas Gold Group and Jennifer Horn. Owning private money in the form of physical gold and silver is perhaps more important than ever to your long-term financial security. As U.S. banks fail, the Biden administration sends hundreds of billions abroad while depleting our strategic oil reserves. However, the biggest financial threat may be coming from within: central bank digital currency. The patents have been filed and the big banks have released plans for implementation. Midas Gold Group sees tyrannical implications, the end of cash, the end of financial privacy, big government able to see your every purchase. Could there be ties to social credit? Hear more commentary on the political and economic issues that affect your financial security right here on the Gold Standard. You can create your own Gold Standard with a call to Midas Gold Group, 855-322-GOLD. That's 855-322-4653, MidasGoldGroup.com.
Welcome back. It is a Gold Standard Radio Show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn back together again. And Ken, we've been spending some time talking about wealth preservation versus wealth creation. And I think it's important to go through why now is a good time. And we went through some of the reasons before, but why this is the right time to start thinking about preserving your wealth. It's not all about, it's not all or nothing, essentially. We want you to continue to create wealth for yourself, but when you have it, you have to protect it.
Yeah, I think people have to realize, Jen, that, the environment that we're in, they have to understand that, the bubble has been inflated again through abnormally low interest rates and free, money, easy money, easy credit, and when debt is at 0%, even for the government, well, okay, but as interest rates start to rise, that becomes a very big problem. It becomes a problem for corporations that have to refinance it. It becomes a problem for people who have credit cards. It becomes a big problem for the government, because if you have, more trillions of debt and you're paying more of an interest rate on that debt, it's an issue to service that debt. Costs more and more money. And people have to realize, Jen, and we talk about where we are right now, where we've come from. When there's a nice sale going on, everybody likes to buy assets when they're on sale. So when you think about, overvaluation, and we're not giving financial advice, but when you talk about another bubble, and when you talk about many of these people on the, in media that make up justification for why something is trading where it is, that's the same thing that's happened over and over again, where you have to ask yourself, do people remember what happened in 2000 and 2008? Do they recall the reasons and what was the ending result? I don't think so. So, that's why wealth preservation right now is very important, because the system has been abused in the last, 10 years, especially 15 years since the great financial crisis. The bubble that we have is now bigger than ever. The government is more leveraged than ever. There's more people at home pushing buttons on their telephone. It almost reminds me of like sports gambling at this point, where people are buying and selling cryptocurrencies and stocks. And that's all fine and dandy when it's working. But what happens when they pull the rug out from all of this, and they pull the plug? So wealth preservation right now is very important, because people have to realize that every single fiat currency system in history has ended up failing. And that means that we've either gone through a period of severe hyperinflation, where the money has just lost tremendous value, or the government itself defaults. And when that happens, other countries lose faith in that particular country. And what are we seeing? Other countries don't want to buy our debt anymore. Other countries want to do business, by themselves in their own local currencies. The dollar as the world reserve currency is losing steam. It's losing its status. We saw President Putin talking with Tucker Carlson about how Russia used to do 80% of its business in dollar euro, and now they're doing about 13% of their business in dollar euro. We see how Russia is getting more comfortable in bed with China and India, and how these other oil producing countries like Saudi Arabia are now doing oil business outside of just dollars. This is a trend. Now it takes time, happens a little at a time, or then all of a sudden things really start to snowball and avalanche. So the question is if we start to snowball next week, and there starts to have an avalanche of, let's say, a debt crisis or potentially a banking crisis, what are you going to do? Are you going to have enough separation between where you are now, or are you going to get really killed in the markets? Are you going to get really killed with your money at the bank? Is your money going to be inaccessible? What's going to happen? And that's why some of these decisions need to be made now. And even gold, is eventually going to be either unavailable or too expensive to even own. You have to try to convert some of those paper assets now so that you can protect your IRA, protect an old 401k that you might have, Jen. Protect some liquid assets. It doesn't all have to be connected to a system that's going through this. And it all doesn't have to be connected to a system that's going to be monitored through a digital currency.
Right.
You can have privacy, Jen. And you can have an asset that has a long historical track record of retaining its value. $1 of gold 20 years ago is now worth $7 of gold, and it's getting more. $1 20 years ago is now worth probably 50 cents. So things are getting worse, and it's not going to improve because we're taking out more debt and because the banks are taking more leverage and using more derivative. It's going to get worse, and there's going to be a point where things blow up. And when it blows up, you don't want to be totally financially destroyed, Jen.
Yeah,
and
you don't want to be. You don't want to be playing catch up. You don't want to be trying to struggle to figure out what you're going to do. This is an opportunity for you to take control, for you to get the freedom back. And that's what Midas Gold Group really does, is give you your freedom back so that you have a portion of your money, of that tangible gold out of the system that is protected and it's with you. 855-322-4653. That's the number to call if you're interested in Midas Gold Group. If you're brand new, they are a great resource so that you can figure out what your options are moving forward into gold and precious metals. Or if you're looking for a new broker, it's really an important one. Call Midas Gold Group. These are people that you can go see face to face, that are not sitting in a call center with no windows and no doors, locked in, giving so-so advice if you're lucky. Midas Gold Group, filled with America First patriots. They are veteran owned, and they are real people just like you who can help you through this the ability to protect yourself and your family. 855-322-4653. That's a number for Midas Gold Group. 855-322-GOLD. You can also check them out always online at MidasGoldGroup.com. That's MidasGoldGroup.com. You can text the word gold as well. 23 24 25. Midas gets right back to you, or you can go see them. Thousand Oaks, California, Phoenix, Arizona. More information, MidasGoldGroup.com. And Ken, I do think it's important because you did touch on this earlier, but every fiat currency throughout history has failed. So this is an opportunity, once again, we say it, to protect yourself before that completely happens. We're already seeing the system failing. We see the dollar on very shaky ground.
Yeah, it's unraveling, Jen. That's the way that I would put it. It's unraveling, and the system is desperately trying to hold on to whatever is left. And, politicians are scrambling. The banking sector is going to scramble. And for now, okay, everybody's taking advantage of that by speculating. But that's not going to end well because it never ends well. Eventually, the bubble gets so big and then it pops, okay? So when is that going to happen? I don't know. It was pretty funny. I had the television on today.
Yep.
One of those communist stations. And Gary Gensler was on, who's the SEC chairman, and he was talking about all of these new climate change policies that the SEC has just posed about the risks that climate change, present to corporations. And the television host says, "Oh, really? Well, what risks does the climate change pose to the banking sector?" I was just like, what are these fools talking about? I mean, these are the people that are supposed to provide the regulation of our financial system. These are the people that are supposed to be the watchdogs of our markets and our financial system. And they also had Powell on today talking about, the markets and what the Fed is doing to make sure everything is going to be okay. And I just shake my head, and it's just a matter of time that unfortunately our great country financially is going to take a big blow. And it's because of all this debt. It's because of the recklessness. It's because of the greed of Wall Street. We saw it in 2008. We've seen it in other times. And unfortunately, like we talked about, Jen, wealth preservation is so important now because the mess that we have is as big as ever.
Yeah.
The risk is as big as ever. It's gone exponential. And when you have that kind of a setup, that means coming down on the other side, when that happens, is going to be that much more than what we even saw in 2008 or 2000. So just get ready, folks. That's what this is about. Gold is your insurance, for your money. It's for when something goes bad. And eventually, unfortunately, it's inevitably going to go bad.
Take the steps now and use this moment, this day, to reach out to Midas Gold Group. Check in with them, 855-322-4653. Find out how precious metals can help protect you, protect your wealth, preserve your wealth. 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-4653, and always at Midas Gold Group. Thanks for joining us. It's a Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.